Hello, this is Kelly Borsheim. I'm using this time to experiment a little bit and try to push out of my boundaries of realism. And that's been a hard thing for me. Also, I don't feel very strong in color. So I've been working off of this image of Castelvecchio, my village here. And I took this picture of the white pigeons of Anselmo, and this is the village. I'm using Casey Klant's wonderful, wonderful juicy pastels as a way to help me push away from realism. And so this is what I'm developing so far. Come on over here. Okay, this is, to me, this looks really, really strange because it's not natural for me, one, to use these particular colors. They're too pastel-y, chalky for my taste generally. However, I'm trying to go out of something new. I think I gave myself a bad start when I started with a traditional sky. So I'm trying to ignore the fact that I did that at the moment. And anyway, so where I am now on the level of this is I put different colors in for the village. So it looks more like Burano than it does a medieval village in Tuscany. Burano is a island off of Venice, that is famous for its lace making and its colorful buildings. These aren't quite the color of those, but the same idea. And also Mexico, I know, has really bright buildings and different things like that. But again, I'm trying to push out of something. I did the drawing in charcoal. You can see black every once in a while here. And I'll put some images up of what I've taken up to this far here. So now you can see I'm working on this greenery that's here. So you can see I've got the major dark shape is right here, because that's a problem I'm finding with this particular image is when I'm comparing it to what Casey's working on here, I was trying to tell myself, okay, use one color for lights and use another color or family of colors for the darks. That seems like a good place as any to start for me. But I find this is just full flat out sun hitting the villages. And even though when I really go in to look at it, you see this is lighter, but it's also a little bit warmer. This one might seem a little bit bluer or grayer. This has more orange in it compared to that. Do you see that? The color cold, warm, cold, warm, cold, warm, and light and white. And I'm using those kind of things to try to push myself to say, okay, use a color that's not what that is, but has the same essence of cold versus warm. And because I find that when I get overwhelmed by something, I try to make a question into a yes or no thing. Can I make it this? Can I make it that? Can I do this or that? It simplifies the decision making for me, and then I can try one thing and hopefully move it over to another. So what I've been doing over here is I've done this on some other pieces before, but I'm trying to really, again, push myself out of something. I've been putting a purple, a dark purple. First I had the black charcoal under here, but I'm sort of splotching in purple here as the dark places. And I'm trying to tell myself that the majority of the dark was over here on my model. And then I've got the white birds, and then I've got the laundry line, and so I've got different activities going on here, but I want to try to remember to group some things so that I understand a little bit about what's going on here. But that may be a bad way to think of this, because maybe I'm still going back to realism even though I'm trying not to. Does that make any sense to you at all? But what's really happening, I think, is that I'm trying to think of a lot of different composition things at a time, and I don't want to have just a pastel gibberish or disaster mess, because even though I'm experimenting, there is a part of my brain that still thinks if this turns out well, I can put it up for sale, because a girl's got to eat, that's a given, maybe. Okay. So right now I'm trying to get into layer colors. Now, if you could look down here, I tried layering different colors underneath the same pastel green, okay? So here I've got an opposite, which is a pink, and then I've got this other dark brown, and then I've got kind of a tealy blue, and then I've got a purple, and then I've got an orange, and then I put the green on top of that. Now, if you can see on my paper here, you see the crop marks? Each corner has a crop mark. So I know that I'm doing these little these little color swatches are underneath the drawing and they won't really ever be in the way. So that's not a problem. I just wanted to use something on the actual paper that I'm using. This, by the way, is a sandpaper that's made specifically for doing pastels, and it gives a lot more tooth to be able to hold on to the pastel, which is basically a powdered chalk, powdered pigment. Okay, I also did the telephone lines blue. I'll come in with something light as I decide, but right now I just wanted to make sure I don't lose too much of the lines, and also I put in a little bit of white here for some gross figures of the birds. Again, all of that can be developed, and I like, one of the things I love about Casey's drawings, again, come over here, it's just brilliant. I mean, if look him up, I'll put his name up here in the video later, and I can see exactly what that is. I know that that's a tower. Do I worry that this line is not straight up like architecture and that this is a little sloppy and that this comes in like this and then this road? You know what? He's done it so perfectly. None of those things that a realist painter would think of as a mistake is actually important at all. In fact, I would dare say that because the things are crooked, because his colors are off, I feel more emotion in the sense of this place than I do looking at this picture. I like the composition, the shapes of this thing, but I feel more with this, and that's what I'm trying to go to. Wish me luck. All right, so here, what I'm doing is what I tend to do with things, layering things. The thing that goes in the back, I try to paint first, because then the things that go in front of it will be overlapped. Because I find, for example, if I had done this tree afterwards, I can squiggle it in, but I may not get the feeling that this bunch of trees are in front of it. So I'm working back and coming towards me. What I have done here is put a color, these are going to be olive trees. And I've painted enough of the olive branches to know, and also I've seen enough of them to see that there are so many greens in nature. It's incredible, this, and it doesn't matter, seems like how often I paint something. To match a green in nature is difficult. So I'm doing that thing of the underpainting being a different color, usually an opposite color on the wheel than what your final destination color is going to be. In that mode, I'm also trying to do a little bit of color harmony and figure out where do I want the surprises of the color. The surprises should be where the subject is. I think the subjects are the birds down here, but I'm not entirely sure now, and that's a little bit of a problem, am I losing my focal point? I do have the laundry hanging up here, and now I have this bright orange up here, and I haven't quite decided yet, and I think that's going to be a mistake. But I told myself for now, I don't need to think so strongly on that, because I also know that when you're starting something and you have this half done and this you don't, it's really difficult to put everything in context because half of it doesn't exist. So that's what I told myself. Until I get the dark greens swooping down in here, I may not understand yet what I intended for the focal point, but I do believe it's going to be the bird still. It's just going to be, I'm going to have to see it down. And it could be I tone these colors down, but some part of me thinks, no, I want to break out of my mold. I want to break out of my mold. So, but I say that, and then look, I made a blue sky, and now I'm making these green trees. So, Rome wasn't built in a day. But getting back to this, these are the olive trees. I've taken a light color because I want the tone to be similar to what I want. I just want the hue, the variation of the color, to be opposite. So I'm going to pick a blue-green because olive trees are a bluer green than most greens, which is, I started to say that earlier and got sidetracked. And then I can lap this over. A lot of times I find that using a muted green and then a gray gives me a two-tone color that can give me the idea of an olive tree. But again, I'm trying to push myself out and go into something else. The same reason I did the purple here. So let's see how this goes. All right, here we are with another update. I decided that because this is so much real estate to cover, that I would like to find a way to knock this white down and quickly, instead of doing my little individual trees like this and taking forever. I don't know why. Sometimes I just want to try something different. To that effect, I have this whole set of Sennelier pastels that my friend Lisa and her husband John gave me, and I'm thrilled. They also gave me these 2 pan pastels. I've never used a pan pastel before. They are, can you see that? Maybe put it against a purple. Pan pastel. So I decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a cheap brush that I bought, and I don't want to put black in here because I think black is going to be too strong with this being a full sun, and I don't want to lose my tone value too much. I know the sky is actually darker than the village, and then the foliage or the trees down in front here besides the olives, although the olives I'm going to group with this. I want them all to be dark. I mean dark, light, and then mid-tone. So I don't know if this is going to work. It was just an idea. It was to put the composition horizontal. Maybe I can move this up here. Put the composition dark. I started to spread this with my finger and then had a very good memory of when I was street painting in Florence, Italy, that a lot of times I would get over exuberant about doing my colors, and basically I wore out my fingerprints. And then the thing is, once you wear off the skin on your fingerprints, that's actually kind of painful. I don't recommend that. So I was thinking that if I spread this stuff on the sandpaper a little bit, not being too worried if I mix with a purple, although I'm trying to keep my color integrity here to some degree, I just want to knock down the tone. I find that I've always sort of been like that also when I was oil painting, and now here I'm getting a little mixed there. The thing, I'm probably less concerned about mixing it on the canvas as I am mixing in some purple with brown in case I like this pan pastel and want to use it again. I may not want a purple brown, I may want brown. But anyway, I find that my brain wants to see the general design fast and then build up with layers to get in all the different details. So remember here I've got my little abstracted shapes for birds right now. So I'm just sort of dancing around them. But even so, that's not really that important to me because I could easily get most of this knocked down and make my brain happy, and then I can start going in and individually work my way through the trees and things. Do you see this black line there? That was a mistake I made in the drawing because I put the telephone line way too high. And but that's okay, because you study your shapes and you go, yeah, I caught it pretty early on, so that's fine. I'm going to continue on with this, but I can already see that for me this side is much better. I can see kind of a finish line of where I'm trying to go, and I find that really helpful. Thanks for watching. I'm going to keep going. Alright, so here you see the drawing after I knock down most of the white. You see I'm leaving some white blobs where the birds are going to be. Right here. And now the purple is distracting, but more because it's all jiggy-jaggy and action-oriented, and the other things are relatively calm and smooth and blended and that sort of thing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go work on the computer for the other part of being the artist. I did a lot of sanding on my sculpture today, and I've worked on this a little bit, and while I paint, I listen to videos, sometimes to learn about painting, but often to learn about how to write a book. Or sometimes I listen to audiobooks so that I can see the structure of a book, the same way I'm looking at a structure of a painting. It's funny because I'm looking at this through the camera lens and think, I don't hate it like I thought I might. It's not Casey Klon, but the fact is I don't want to be him because he's him. I want to move a direction away from where I am and start to learn something, and it doesn't read right at the beginning all the time. It's difficult to change because you always have these forces sort of pulling you back to what you know or what they have always known you as. Although in this case, my art's not going to be pushing against me so much. It's my brain. So let's see what happens. You know, depending on how this painting goes, I may make this all into one long video. We'll see how it goes. I'll let you know. Okay, it's Kelly Borsheim again. I'm here visiting this drawing of Castelvecchio with the white pigeons or doves of Anselmo. I've been thinking about what it is I wanted to be my subject, and it's interesting because once you start making these colorful as compared to the original here, which are all basically the same kind of stone building, every once in a while you get a light one, someone's whitewashed over it. This becomes a grouping of subjects that's going to catch the eye because of the strong color. So the only chance, if I decide that the doves really are going to be my subject, which I kind of like the idea of them remaining the subject, because they're why I snapped the photo in the first place. The way that I can get this to be the subject is to make this the highest point of contrast. It may mean that I tone down the pinks of this later, because if you squint your eyes, you can see that this is the lightest, back there is the lightest. I can mute the tone on that one to make it not so high chroma, and that'll push it back a little bit as well. But right now, I feel like I need to finish the rest of this area before I touch this, because I don't want to judge it too soon. And also, again, I'm trying to push myself a little bit out of my comfort zone and use colors that are a little bit, for my personal taste, shocking, but at the same time, fun. So this is what I'm going to do. I put in some yellows here because I want to make greens that are not just plain greens. And I noticed when I squinted my eyes that the trees have a little bit of warmth to them in spaces. And except the olive trees tend to be a colder green, even a gray green. So I've done that here. I don't need you to know personally that they're olive trees versus a pine tree or acacia or whatever. I just need you to know that they're different trees with different qualities to them, so that your brain says, oh yeah, different kind of trees. There's lots of different stuff going on there. Okay, so you can see that I've left a lot of white space because I haven't actually taken the time to form the shapes of the individual birds, or in the case of this grouping here, there'll be birds together, so they'll be overlapping. But what I have decided is I wanted some yellow. There's a lot of yellow up in here. So I wanted a little bit of yellow to bounce around this, and then I put a little bit more yellow here to kind of group these trees as one big mass also. But really I wanted the weight balanced of the yellow there and the yellow down in this opposite corner. So it could be that when I get to working the trees in this area, I'm going to start muting down. That's not a verb. I've got to stop making nouns into verbs. However, this color is a high chroma, orangey kind of color, and the purple obviously is a high chroma, and I want it to go away, not come toward me. So it will probably become a shadow that's a darker color. But right now I just wanted the opposite color underneath that to give a little bit of layer of stuff. So I'm going to work right now on adding the greens in here and slowly working my way in. I may come and work this stuff before I speak to you again, and work here and work my way towards these birds, because I know that when I sit down to work the birds, I'm going to want to take some time and really look at their shapes and see what I want to do, and maybe change some of the dynamics of them to make an interesting little thing happening within their little village too. Okay, so I'll see you in a bit. Oh, Gregory, hi. Hi. Sei carino. Sedi sulle mie piedi come sempre. Ok, Gregory. Questo è mio. Quasi Studio. Okay, back to business. Now that I've put some of the green in, I realize I still need to go darker. It is a high key painting right now, but I don't feel like it sits well with me. But what I really want to do now is take the subject, and I want to develop the subject. I want to find the cadence between the groups of birds. Some will be separate, some will be together, and then a little one off to the left I think would be kind of fun. So I want to design those guys, and then from then I'll know where to put the tree shapes, because right now it's just a matter of scribbling and stuff. So I want to do that, but I can pretty much tell you, looking at this tone study, this building here has got to go a little bit darker, because right now there's a competition there. Do you see how your eye goes straight to these two highlights? They're not really highlights, but the lightest points in the picture. This gray-green building back here, the Circolo, is not as bright as this whitish pinkish one, so this really has to go back, and we'll see how that's going to turn out. But right now I want to develop them and get that figured out, and then the rest will fall into place. Thank you. Hey, non fai così nel mio studio. Okay, so here you can see I've started to go in and really pay attention to the specific trees and make their marks. Look at my birds. I haven't actually defined them yet, but I figured out where I want the placements to be and working on that. So what I'm going to be using now are these Unison Pastels that I just love. I bought this kit some time ago. It's called, I think, a dark set, and I love it because I find that it is really difficult for me to get things dark enough, and adding black is not always the most fun thing to do. Black is great. If you want the full tonal range, you can really punch the darks and the light and get all the tones in between there. But these are deliciously gorgeous. And if you take them over to this other set of pastels that I've been working on, can you see that they're much, much darker than anything that's in this group here? So that was one of the problems that I was having. And Unison also makes this group of, this is landscape colors, and then I have this other delicious thing. Look at how many greens there are. Cold greens, warm greens, light greens, and dark greens. It's fantastic. But I do find that I'm always going back to this dark set because it's really great. So getting back to the painting now, I'm going in and I'm looking specifically at leaving the empty. I want you to feel as though you really can look through the trees to see the buildings. And that's one reason that I did the building colors first, so that it becomes natural what it was going on. But I didn't go down into here because I thought, I don't know if these are soft pastels, most of what I'm using. I haven't used them enough yet to know how well they'll stick with this particular sandpaper. So I want to make sure that I don't fill up the entire tooth of the paper and nothing else will stay on it. So I was very good with making sure I put some color in, like behind in here. I put some color in there, but I didn't fill it up all the way because I wanted, again, I knew I was going to put a tree over it. So I'm paying attention to the individual brush strokes, the shape of the trees here. Here's my model. Okay, do you see how I've got light coming through there? I can always add in the broken color, some of the broken pieces in later, but I want to get the general shape. You see, this is generally a dark shape right here. And then I have a light, and then I have a light. But you can see that the quality of this, it's broken down into a lot of little things. And that's what I'm developing little by little. So I've been coming in and doing this. I want to leave this lighter green here, but then I'll come in. So the other thing that is that I see I'm going back toward realism, and I realize it's really difficult for me to get out of that. So what I was trying to do was think, okay, in the darks, instead of just using the literal dark green and the yellowish green that's in the lighter part of the tree, I want to come in and make, this is actually a dark navy blue, and this is a purple. So I decided to stay on the trees of the green, blue, purple, and use that for my darks. And then where the light is hitting, this is a warm tree, as compared to what these are going to be eventually olive trees, which are, again, as I mentioned, is a cold gray green. So I really want to contrast these, but I mostly want to get this dark coming in to contrast again my subjects so they really pop out as this is. Do you see how I toned down the tree here, the building here? It's still a light color, but it's not as light to compete with them. And I'll go in later and develop the laundry on the line because I like that even as a secondary focus. Okay, so gonna keep working in this area at first to try to make it more tree-like and less just sort of scribbly blobby stuff. And I'll see you back in a wee bit. Okay, now I'm at this point, and I find that using a camera and making the image into a very small image on the back of the LED screen on the camera, I can clearly see more of what I'm doing as far as composition or things that stand out or things that are not working. I just recently finished filling in some of this green here, and what I can say is that this looks like trees in the LED in the small thumbnail, whereas this just looks like a green blob. I know I'm going in the right direction because the fact that this looks more tree-like up in here means that I can continue to build this. It's just going to take a lot of time. It doesn't look like a lot of real estate, but it's funny how to make these into trees. You can see I've done that with the olive trees here. Okay. I'm starting to do the clumps that's an individual tree because normally olive trees are planted in rows, at least if that's the way the terrace goes, if nothing else. Another thing that I did since the last time I photographed was this group of buildings here, I had it too far to the left. And the funny thing is, I really like the quote that, basically misquoting it, but the idea is the same. I'm not making a documentary, I'm not making a village, I'm making a painting. So if it works as an image, it really doesn't matter if this place exists or not exist. That said, when you get more realistic, it seems that you get more judged by the viewer. And what I mean by that also is that this is the area, this is Castelvecchio where I live. And I know that if locals see this painting, they're going to say, oh, no, that building's not, and they know who all lives in those things and stuff. I still don't know those things, but I didn't grow up here, so I moved it over a little bit as a compromise. I had done these things in relative relation to itself, and for some reason I just did this. And I thought, okay, that's fine. But also it served to take this high color of the purple and make it a smaller real estate. This maybe, if I decide it's too bright later, I'll put some trees in front of it and that kind of thing. But right now, these are the things I'm judging. The other thing is my birds are better as far as the shapes go, but they're not clear enough to really understand that they're birds. Do you see that they're actually blobs? So it's good that I found the shapes. It's good that I'm starting to understand that, oh, that's a bird on a wire kind of thing. The rest of them, obviously, they're going to need some more work. But right now I'm happy with the overall reading of the form. I like the little clouds here breaking up, otherwise it'd be a solid straight sky. I'm also seeing that the roofs in general are too dark. They're pulling out too much attention, and the lines are all too straight. Now, the photograph was taken in daylight, and everything was in focus. I don't want to do that. I want to start softening some of the edges. This edge here breaks that building up in too much, and I want to, these are the things I'll be developing over time, because right now I'm still working on the big clusters of groups, and then I'll go in and start working individual things. The roofs, I'm sure these are like the Spanish tile roofs here. However, that's too much contrast right there. And again, it pulls it away from here. And one of the things that I can do if I want to keep the building as light as it is going to be to lighten that roof a little bit. And that's easy to do because really, the more these roofs go in the back, I shouldn't be seeing bright color contrast like this. They should get muted if I'm going from a classical art objective. In general, I don't tend to like what I call graphic art, meaning cartoon outlines of things and coloring them in and that kind of stuff. I do like a little bit of more atmospheric kind of thing. So we're going to see, because even though I said I wanted to do something like Casey Klon's doing, I find that I always end up going back to this realism stuff. I might leave something ridiculously surreal like these blue telephone lines, but if I end up developing this too much as a reality piece, that's going to look ridiculous. However, I can add the grays and whites on top of it to mute it down and leave the blue as the dark or something. But these are all decisions that I'm going to have to make. I can also see this tree here is too bright green and it's taking away too much attention from where I want it to go. Do you see how the eye is kind of going ding, 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 ding? And on the other hand, that's fine. That can swing up this way and push the eye around, but I think there's a bit of compromise that needs to happen there still. So we're going to keep working, but right now I'm going to go outside and sand on my marble sculpture while I have gorgeous weather out. Ciao, ciao for now. All right, now it's time for a little bit of self-critique on this pastel painting of the pigeons in front of Castelvecchio. So my first thought is that this is too contrasty. It competes a little bit with that. Now your eye is going to go to the high point of contrast and then move up. I mean, closest to center and then move up. The thing is, this is very close to center here and it's very contrasty. So it could be that what I will do is take these shadows and maybe make them not quite so dark, because you'll see here in my trees are not black. And I haven't cleaned up the pigeons enough yet to really say that they're taking shape. They're kind of getting there, a little here, a little there, but they'll need to be really white if I can get rid of some of the pastel that's mudding up some of those waters. In general, also, I see that the rooftops are a little too dark. Do you see how dark that one is there and here? So even though I think I want to do a big colorful move away from my photorealism thing that people say that I do sometimes, I find I still want depth in here. It's really difficult to work from a photograph in that sense because you don't see the depth, especially if the f-stop was quite small and it's a big sunny day. Everything's going to be in focus. And as the artist, I want to choose what is in focus and what is out of focus so that I can lead your eye to go where I want it to go. And for that fact, I would like this to look a little more distant than maybe this is. But I'm also thinking that especially this building is too high, too light, too light. So I want to push that back down so it becomes part of this, where these buildings are closer to me and they go away as they go down here. And that means this rooftop definitely has to be a little bit lighter, and the shadows underneath will not be so hard underneath the rooftops. Okay, I moved this rooftop up a little bit because I shouldn't see that much of the top, because I'm actually standing in a street down here looking up at this place. I won't see that much of the lid. I moved it up quite a bit, but I'm debating about whether I should do it again. It really depends on how I would have to do something similar, because this one is behind that one, which means I should see less roof than I see of this. These, I hardly see anything, and it may just be the way the angle is, or that the roof is tilted. So I want to take a look at my reference photo to give me an idea of the direction. But you know, at this point, it's almost as if I don't care anymore what my reference looks like, because I'm making a painting and not a documentary. So it needs to be that the painting works within itself at this point. Okay, so another little thing that I see, I pulled some of the gray-green from the olive trees down in between here to break up a little, all of this solid kind of dark yellowy green kind of stuff, and to break it up. But what I did is something that I think we tend to do naturally with our brains, and that is to organize everything. So do you see what I did here? This is quite parallel to the phone lines here, okay? That's not really good. What I think I'm going to do is pull it into this direction down here so that it leads into the composition, this white shape, because if you see this is quite a bit lighter than the background. And so I don't need to make it an obvious arrow, but at least I don't have it going sweeping here and sweeping here. I can push it in this way and have it go, you know, I want your eye to follow this line. I'm trying to put in little highlights on the wheel to knock down the bright blue, but mostly to give a feeling of it being woven metal. And so I kind of did a little silly stitch kind of thing, but I'll work that out too. And anyway, I want to do this. Maybe the dark shape can be the thing that pulls this up and around, and then have this travel around like this. So that's kind of what I'm interested in doing. But again, I would like some of these edges that are here to be softer and more distinct, less distinct, and not so contrasty, because I could still show depths in buildings even though they're close together, but you can tell this one's in front of that because it has an overlap, okay? So that's what I'm going to work on. Oh, and also I want to clean up the white that's in this cloud. I think some of the color from the rooftop bled into the white when I was sort of pushing things around and trying to scooch up close to the building. And I don't want to have that one cloud being a warm color when all the rest of these seem to be on the cool side. So that's going to be taking a look at those again. And also I'm not really sure I like this one because all of these are going at an angle, and then all of a sudden I have a horizontal one that's parallel to the crop marks that are up here. That might be a bit boring. It may be that I can pull them up and make it one big solid cloud, or it may be that I change the angle of it or put more stuff in here or something like that. So those are the things I want to revisit. But pretty soon I'm ready to call this baby a done deal. What do you think? Hi, so this is Kelly Borsheim, and I have decided that I finished this piece. I worked on some of the olive trees here. I took some mark making with the darks and the lights, and I decided to use my fingers with a little bit of the finger oils that you get, and just kind of lightly, very, very lightly, just soften some of the mark making because I felt like it was pulling too much attention with the high contrast of the marks. So I softened all those. And I also did things such as take a little bit of a light purple and go over this yellow building here to knock down the tone value. It was way too light and it was taking up too much attention. So I used a contrasting color with a light purple but a little bit darker than the yellow was. And I did kind of a horizontal streaky kind of thing to sort of imply a stone particle or a stone wall. I did similar things to knock down the tones of some of these things. This building is a little bit light there, but it's such a small space that I felt like it was more of a balance thing. Maybe it's still taking too much energy. I'll have to look at that again. But in general, I lightened the roofs and I lightened all the shadow around them and worked on some of that kind of thing and then worked in. But I was trying to mix in some other colors for the darks here. And so there's dark reds and there's a purple. Kind of a brick red or brownish down in here. So there were some things like that I did. I don't remember if I mentioned in an earlier video that I moved these buildings here were too far to the left. And even though for a painting it doesn't really matter, and I'm not making a documentary, I'm making a painting, there was a part of me that thought, I'm going to show this in a solo show in Pescia, a small town in Italy that's between Florence and Lucca. And the main town from this village called Castelvecchio. So I didn't want it to be too far off because I know that a lot of people are still going to be going, those aren't the colors of the buildings, but they might want the buildings to be in the same place. So I did move those to the left a little bit, and that was kind of fun, getting some more of that stuff done. Now, one of the things that I enjoy doing when I'm finished with a piece to kind of go, hurrah, hurrah, you finished something. And also it helps to judge the image in a different way. It's kind of like taking a photograph, makes you see it either in a small LED, you can see big problems fast when you see the image as a reduced thumbnail. But also if you see it in a frame, all of a sudden maybe you see things that you weren't there. So what I have done here is I've got the foam core and I had mounted this sandpaper that's made for pastels to the board, and you can see my crop marks here. We've talked about that before. So this is the mat that goes with the frame I had intended that for. And I'm going to very lightly set it here, line it up on the edges here, and then pop it down. So this is pretty much what it'll look like when it's framed. Okay, that was a little buggy or something. I do want to point out that before I took this video, I put all the pastels away and I cleaned this easel because as I'm making things, I'm brushing things off, I'm scrunching things and things like that. And sometimes the pastel falls into these little grooves on the easel as it's intended to do. So I took all that and washed it off because I want the mat to stay white, and that's not going to help. So, and there's no reason to have it. Plus, I'm ready to go on with the next work, and I want to have a clean thing going on. So yeah, I'll have a solo show in Pescia. I don't know when. It was supposed to be next week on May 9th, and now with the coronavirus, it's not going to happen. It'll happen, but we don't know when, obviously. So I'm curious to see how people who know the village respond to the painting, and also you who may have never been here before respond to the painting, and we'll see. But it's interesting for me because I used a color palette that's a little bit different for me, so I'm pushing a little bit out of my zone and went into a lot of pastel-y happy colors. That's not normally my thing, but so it's interesting because I didn't exactly go as far as what I wanted to do, but I'm pushing in little directions here, and so I felt like I learned a lot from this piece, and I like it, and we're going to see what's happened. But on to the next one soon, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to this channel, like it, share it with your friends if you like, and please let me know in the comments if this is interesting to you, and if you're learning anything, or if you're watching it to learn something. Maybe you just want to see the finished pieces or what. So let me know what you're doing and how you're responding to this coronavirus thing. So thank you for watching. Ciao. It's Borsheimarts.com. Thank you.